Hey, what's up, friends? You got Gypsy back here today with week one of the ITL, going up against Eric and his Reno Regis. So, yeah, my man has a very threatening team, consisting of huge threats like Tapu Bulu. He's got Zerkatry, so he's got a nice Ultra Beast on his team. Gengar, really solid one. Huge threat to most teams, but we do have the Muck, so Gengar isn't really that big of an issue. But yeah, he also does have Seismitoad, which is a pretty solid physical wall. Obviously, taking on my Cabalion, which is pretty nice for him. But he doesn't have a lot on his team to really deal with Tapu Lele. As you see, he's brought the Delphox this game, which actually is a really cool Assault Vest set, which we're gonna see during the match. He's got potentially like an Ockerberry Fortress, which may come. Um, any variant of Bishop could be quite interesting. He could be like a Scarfed variant of Bishop potentially, or even an Assault Vest variant, which could be interesting too. But running over the team up real quickly, we have, I'm not going to go too in-depth into the sets just because me and my opponent Eric are in the same division and we do play twice this season, so there were certain sets I didn't have to reveal, but I will kind of give a little overview of the team. So we have my defensive lefties, Cabalion, setting rocks, taunting opposing Fortress and opposing rock setters. Yeah, I've got Iron Head for the Bulu. I've got Close Combat for just general stuff like a weakened Seismitoad. Obviously Oko's stuff like Bishop on his team, which is important. Gets good damage off on the Flygon. He also had a Miltank on his team, which could have been his potential rocker. So being able to taunt Miltank and then fire for Close Combat would have been really solid. If I didn't expect him to have counter. It's also my strongest way of hitting Zerkatry. So Close Combat, pretty kind of splashable stab. And yeah, just the best option this week. So then we have my sub Baton Pass Roost Spirit Shackle Decidueye. So I'm not running a boosting move on this week just because I wanted to be able to sub up just in case he switches into his Bishop, which will allow me to get a slow Baton Pass off, tanking the knockoff with my substitute, allowing me to get a switch into something to capitalize on Bishop like Cabalion or even like my Lele. And this is a defensive set, like I mentioned. It helps me take on Seismitoad, helps me take on stuff like his Flygon, which a DD or even like a band variant could have been a bit of an annoyance. Definitely a Scarf variant could have been a pain late game, so I did want to have like a sturdy ground check. Latios and Thunderous obviously being taken out by like Scarfed Outrage, so that was something to consider. And Decidueye is pretty solid against this team. Like I said, it can take on Tapu Bulu if it's not like a boosting, like if it's not like a Swords Dance, it can kind of take it on fairly effectively. It's a pretty solid spin blocker as well because Fortress is his only way of removing hazards this match, and if I get up rocks, especially early game, it's really going to pressure the Delphox, which is, if that's actually his Tapu Lele answer, that's going to be really solid because it's going to be taking that 25 chip. Nice for the Gengar, putting in guaranteed knockoff range from Thundy. Nice to break the Fortress's own sturdy, because actually my Muck is rocking Fire Blast this week, so we could nab a surprise Oko on that if we manage to get our rocks up and force the Fortress to take that 12%. So next up we have Latios this week, who is a pretty offensive spread. I got Draco for just general just damage versus his team, because he doesn't really have the best switch-ins to Latios. He's got the Tapu Bulu, but it's not going to appreciate a Psychic. This is like one of my best answers to Zerkatry, because I can switch in, I can tank even like a Hidden Power Ice, and deal huge damage back, if not killing, with Draco Meteor after a little bit of chip. If you bring Scarfed Zerkatry, then that's far easier for my team to handle in between Assault Vest Muck, Latios and Decidueye, and my own Lele, just because Zerkatry can't hit Lele too hard. Even with its electric stab, Lele's got pretty solid speed F, so I got Defog on this set just in case he does decide to like try and stack versus me, and for some reason I can't taunt him with Cabalion. Having Defog in the back is pretty solid. Then we have AV Muck, the Lord of Grime himself. My boy is coming today with the Assault Vest, pretty standard. Like, he has a Gengar, he has a Delphox, pretty necessary. It also allows me to take on Post 3 Zerkatry surprisingly well. Knockoff is doing a ton, putting him in guaranteed range of something like Psychic from Latios, or something from Thundy, or any hit from Lele for that matter. So Assault Vest Mark. As I said, it does have Fire Blast on it, so that's a pretty nice deck in case I can couch the Fortress switching on me thinking it's safe. So then we have my Lefties Thundy this week. Originally I had a different plan for this Thundy, but I figured Lefties was the way to go just because he had a Crobat on his squad, which could kind of give my team some trouble. If Cobalion, my defensive response to this team, is really pressured by stuff like Tapu Bulu and Bishop, a late game Crobat could be a real pain, especially if it's an offensive variant. So having lefties on Thundy for that longevity could really prove clutch. But as you can see, he didn't bring Crobats, so you know it's not the end of the world. But lefties is still solid. Like allows me to switch in on like Fortresses, Gyro Balls easier, have like a better time switching in the long run. That's basically Thundy though. It's got some pretty nice quad coverage for his team. I'm not really going to go into it set too much, but then we have Lele, Hidden Power Fire, Psychic Energy Ball, and Moonblast this week. So pretty fun mon, pretty nice indeed, because it Oko's Circuitry, it Oko's Bulu after rocks. My set Oko's Bulu after rocks with Psychic and Psychic Terrain. HP Fire obviously destroys Fortress, and the only really thing on his team that can switch into this comfortably is like a really heavily invested in Spadef, Assault Vest, Delphox, because you know I could be carrying Shadow Ball, so he's got to play around that correctly, but Delphox can at least tank a hit and get some damage off putting it in range of something like Pursuit from Bishop. So we're going to jump into the match. I do decide to lead off with my Cobalion. It is my Stealth Rocker, and it is my way of taunting his opposing lead Fortress if he does decide to lead with that. So we're going to get into it. Challenged by Trainer Eric, my first Gen 7 league match on Wi-Fi, which is pretty tight. So yeah, Cobalion is going to come out. He's going to lead off with his Fortress. We're just going to throw off a taunt turn 1 because, you know, if I can help it, I'd rather not have to defog hazards away. I'd rather just get my own up and be done with it. So that's what we're going to do. He's actually going to go for the Rapid Spin turn 1. Predicting me to go for Stealth Rock, I guess, which makes sense. But the cool thing is I can eventually like get rocks up on a turn that he goes for a different move, and then go out to my Decidueye if he does want to spam Rapid Spin. I didn't think he'd like stay in there and repeatedly kick Rapid Spin. He could have won that like in the long run if I had just decided to spam Stealth Rocks, because Rapid Spin has more PP, but he decides to switch out and go out into his Seismitoad. Now this could be his rocker, this could definitely be his rocker, but the fact that he has Fortress made me think this is probably like a defensive variant or even like an offensive variant. So I just go into my Decidueye here, who I know can take on any variant of Seismitoad, even like a knockoff variant, like a Life Orb knockoff. I can still tank a second knockoff after that and just roost up, as he fires off the Earthquake. Now, I get a relatively free sub here, because if you wanted to go for a Toxic or something on my Decidueye, I can sub up and block that Toxic. And if he wants to switch out into his Bishop, then I can get momentum the next turn with Baton Pass, which is actually what happens, as he does go into his Bishop here. And this is going to let me gauge some information on his set, just seeing what move he wants to lock himself into. If he has knockoff, then you know that's good for me to. This is all vital information for me to know. So like he's more than likely knockoff Iron Head, obviously for the Lele, Sucker Punch I'd say for the Lati and the Thundy, maybe like Low Kick or something for my Cobalion, which make a lot of sense. But we do get the Baton Pass off. He's not a Life Orb set, which is good to know. So now we can just go into my Cobalion, and if he is a Scarf variant, he's going to have to switch here anyway. So this turn he's going to make the switch out, going out into his. He goes out into his Gengar this turn. As I do just fire for close combat. If he did want to switch into his Seismitoad here, I gauge the damage of his set, kind of determining, you know, giving me some vital information on what role his Seismitoad was gonna kind of perform on his team. And if he wanted to go into Fortress, I just close combat it and then taunted the next turn. But he goes into his Gengar, and now his Gengar is going to fire off the Hidden Power Ground. Really nice like play by my opponent, as it covered both me staying in with Cobalion and me switching out to Muck. However, AV Muck does not care about super effective Hidden Powers. We smack him with that Pursuit, and we take out the Gengar who's trying to switch out, which is really solid. So that's one of the biggest threats on his team gone. And this means that my Tapu Lele is now instantly more of a threat. That's another thing on his team that can't check it offensively. And, you know, that's just the one thing that was standing in the way of Cobalion spamming close combat is down. So Mark's going to switch out here as he brings in his Seismitoad. I'm not trying to take the Earthquake. I just go out to my Decidueye here. as he makes the play of firing off a Toxic, predicting that. So good play on my opponent's part. He understands that I probably do want to preserve the Muck because he does have a Delphox, and that is probably one of my best responses to it. Although I do have a Thunderous with knockoff, so I did have other answers, but keeping Muck is definitely important. So he goes into Seismitoad and fires off a Toxic. As I'm just going to Baton Pass this turn, I have shown Substitute, and I know he can't break my sub unless he is packing like Knockoff or Ice Punch. I felt as though he probably would switch here because I've only shown Baton Pass and Substitute, so I could have Leaf Blade, but I'm just going to switch out to my Thunderous as he fires off an Earthquake. Now he may have predicted me to go for a Substitute there and thought perhaps he could break my Substitute with the Earthquake, or maybe he just predicted me to switch out that turn, predicting him to switch out. I'm not quite sure on that. But I do just fire off the Grass Knot here, just in case he wasn't expecting it, or if he was Rindo, I broke the Rindo, and again, got valuable information. I don't unfortunately have Sludge Wave on my Thundy. It was a last minute change for reasons that I'm not going to go into, but I opted to use another coverage move in that slot of Sludge Wave, but it's alright because I do have a couple of ways to check this Bulu. So I'm going to switch out here, go out into my Decidueye, just trying to scout for the Z move fighting because this is actually his Z move on his team. So I felt as though because Cobalion is such an obvious switch into this, he may actually have the Z move fighting on this Mon. So no point not scouting for that, as I know my Decidueye can tank a hit if it needs to. But he goes for the Stone Edge, and that's definitely not a banned Stone Edge, so he does reveal to be a Life Orb variant, which is good to know. So this means that this means that my Cobalion has an easier time switching in. Even Life Orb superpowers won't actually take me out, which is pretty solid. But he's just going to go for the Mega Horn here. I would have lived another Stone Edge, but Mega Horn is going to take me out. I just go for Roost there, just gauging what he wants to do. If he wants to like Swords Dance, then I can just sack off my Decidueye and bring in something like Lele to revenge. But it does kill me off there with the Mega Horn, which is completely fine. I'm going to play a theme of the match is I'm going to play very carefully around this type of Bulu. I don't know its spread as of yet. I know it's invested in attack and its life orb, but I don't know its speed investment, so that's definitely something I've got to suss out during the match. But I'm just going to go for the Psychic here. As he brings in his Delphox, he takes that Rocks damage. And this is a strong Psychic coming from Lele. This is strong, like this is real strong. And this Delphox absolutely eats it up. So amazing prep on my opponent's part. Really, really cool set. Delphox has just got that typing to resist both of Lele's stabs. Had I gone for Shadow Ball there, it would have been a clean to a KO. I want to say it'd be a clean to a KO, but judging by the fact that I'm like a boosting item plus like Psychic Terrain and it only did that much, I don't know. I don't know actually, but either way, I'm going to go into Muck, who pretty much checks this Delphox. I go for Pursuit here, knowing that 2 Pursuits will kill. If he did decide to preserve this Delphox, that would actually make a lot of sense because that is his answer to my Lele. So he's going to go for the Fire Blast here. He actually misses, which is really unfortunate in the sense that he would have got damage off on Muck, preventing him from switching into Stealth Rocks yet again. I would have survived 100%. I ran the calc. Fire Blast didn't kill me from that range unless he crit, in which case I just revenged with Thundy. But having Muck around obviously is pretty nice. But now I can just fire off a Fire Blast on this Fortress. He does not suspect the Fire Blast, and we are able to knock out the Fortress. So Muck putting in that work, dodging Fire Blasts, you know, taking out his responses to Lele. And now, you know, stuff like Laddie is looking a lot more threatening, being able to drop Dracos on his team. But he brings in his Seismitoad, and I'm just going to switch out here, going out into my Thunderous, I believe this turn, or my Latios this turn actually, my Latias. I go out, and I'm just going to drop a Draco Meteor because he's going to fire off an Earthquake. And even if he wants to Toxic me this turn, I can get a big chunk off on this Seismitoad. And this is really the only thing left preventing Cobalion from just winning with Close Combat 9 head respectively, because this thing comfortably tanks Close Combats because it is so fat, and it's more than likely a defensive variant. But it's not going to appreciate that Draco Meteor from Latias. And this is actually going to put him in range of 2 Close Combats. But after left, he's just going to be out of range. And yeah, pretty nice spot we're in at this point. He's gonna Toxic my Latias, which doesn't really matter too much because I can still fire off Psychics if I need to versus the Bulu. Like, health on this thing isn't that important. I'm going to die to a life or Mega Horn anyway from Tapu Bulu, and Bishop is probably going to Oko me with Sucker Punch, definitely with a knockoff. I'm going to go out to Cobalion this turn, in case he did want to switch out into his Bishop, which makes a lot of sense versus my -2 Latias. And I don't actually know what his Bishop set is yet. He actually reveals to be an Assault Vest variant, we're going to see later on, but Bishop could have comfortably taken my Latias on at -2. So I go into my Cobalion making the offensive play, but he actually reveals Protect, which is interesting. It is going to allow him to get a lot of health back with lefties, which is nice for him. But my Thunderous is inside now, taking advantage of the obvious Earthquake, and now I can just fire off, I believe, another Grass Knot here, in case he did want to sack it off. I believe I do click Grass Knot, I click Knock Off this turn, predicting his Tapu Bulu to come in wanting to remove that Life Orb. But I knock off his Assault Vest off his Bishop, so this is actually yet another response to Lele. I can definitely understand Lele is a massive threat, and he came prepared, so he's going to make the prediction of low kick, expecting my Cobalion to come in. We tank, we chew, but a very nice play on my opponent's part. I could have clicked T-Bolt there. I definitely could have clicked T-Bolt there, but had he crit me with Sucker Punch there, I would have gone down. And I do want to keep my my Thunderous around because it can Oko the Seismitoad, which is again the only thing standing in the way of Cobalion. I knew he probably wasn't going to have superpower or something with Bishop. I knew he was probably going to be low kick, and I knew Cobalion could tank. Even a crit wouldn't have killed Cobalion from that range of health. And now I can just fire for close combat, as his Seismitoad does come in and tank surprisingly well. But I know he's more than likely going to click Protect here, or he's actually going to be out of range for a second close combat. And this is my win con essentially at this point. I don't want Cobalion taking unnecessary damage. So I'm just going to go back out into my Thunderous, as he's going to withdraw and make the switch himself out into his Tapu Bulu, which is fine because now I can just chip this thing down with Hidden Power Ices, putting it in range of, guaranteed range of my Cobalion's Iron Head. Tapu Bulu actually has pretty solid defense, so I had to wear it down a little bit before I was confident that my Cobalion could take it out with Iron Head late game. So he's going to take us out with the Stone Edge as Thunderous just fires off a Hidden Power Ice, which is solid. We're going to lose Thunder here, but again, I was playing extremely safe around this Tapu Bulu, whilst I could have again made the double into Cobalion, predicting the Stone Edge. I didn't want to risk getting OHKO'd by Superpower from a crit. Actually, I think I could have even died from Superpower at that range of health, because he is more than likely Adamant Life Orb, considering Bishop's low kick did almost half. So I just kind of wanted to play as safe as I possibly could around this Tapu Bulu, not wanting to risk any crit, just for the sake of differential. As he's now going to sack off his Seismitoad, as I do fire off a Moonblast, not wanting to give Bishop a free switch in, as at this point, you know, all I know about his Bishop set is that it took a knockoff, it did nothing, and he went for low kick on my Cobalion. So I haven't gauged his EV spread at this point. Defensively anyway, I haven't gauged its health investment, but my play is just to go for the Moonblast here. No point risking Cobalion on a crit from low kick again, because it is my way of winning, guaranteed. It does take on his last two mons, but he's going to comfortably live that Moonblast, meaning he's heavily invested in HP, because Moonblast guaranteed killed a non-invested Bishop from that range of health. But he's going to take us out with the Iron Head, and in is going to come Cobalion to wrap this game up. So definitely a really fun game for my first game in the ITL. Good fun playing on Wi-Fi. I don't know if this recording is a bit like cutty, like it seems like it's glitching a bit, but that's probably just because my computer's a piece of garbage. But yeah, I want to give a big shout out to my friend the Verd, who actually recorded this match for me. I really do appreciate that, man. You're a legend. And you know, shout out to the ITL. Cool bunch of guys, and it's going to be a fun season, no doubt. So yeah, Tapu Bulu is going to come in here and get outsped by my Cobalion, who was purposely speed creeping this Bulu, as I can just take him out with the Iron Head. So that is my week 1 match. Next week we face off against a pretty threatening team, the Nevada Noivern rocking Tapu Koko, Dragonite Mimikyu, and a Cresselia. Pretty threatening team, no doubt. That's going to be a fun one. Our week 2 transactions are going to be in effect for that game, so I'm going to have Landorus Therian over Dugtrio, and I'm going to have Alakazam over Latias. So that's going to be a fun one for sure. Fun matchup, and hopefully bring a pretty interesting team. So I hope you guys enjoyed week 1 of the ITL. If you did enjoy, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought of the match in the comments. And yeah, if you guys want to resubscribe to my channel and you would like to see more draft content, more smoke on stuff, more collabs, all that good stuff, then yeah, feel free to subscribe. And I'll catch you guys next time.